how's it going? Welcome to week 4 of questions and answers. This week I wanted to do something just a little bit different. I want to talk about doubt. I actually got a lot of questions from you all that ask things like, is it wrong to doubt? What does it mean if I have doubts? Or what should I do if I start to doubt? And I'm going to come right back to these questions, but let me first talk about what doubt is. Doubt is a feeling of uncertainty, which usually leads us to have some difficult questions that if we don't deal with tend to weigh on us and wear us down, which is why we need to take our doubts seriously. We shouldn't just blow them off because they make us uncomfortable, but instead we should address them. We should wrestle with them and attack them head on, because we've all had doubts before, right? I'll be the first to admit that I've had doubts. I mean, questions pop into your head like, is this stuff real? Can God really do that? I mean, why in the world are there things like mosquitoes? I mean, seriously, what the heck? Ugh. Ugh. But anyways, what I want to do now is take a look at some of your questions so that we can get a better understanding of how to deal with the doubts in our life. So the first question you all asked was, is it okay to doubt? And the answer is yes. Like I said before, doubt is something that everybody deals with. But even though everyone deals with doubt, not everyone is willing to admit it. And I think that's a result of the culture we live in. You see, in American culture, doubts, they equal weakness. Or maybe even better yet, doubt equals stupidity. But that's not true. We feel like if we can't answer our questions of doubt on our own, that either one, we're stupid, or two, all of this Christian stuff must just be a bunch of baloney and God must not exist after all. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who, when doubt shows up in their life, jump over to number 2 all too quickly. Or they spend so much time on number 1, thinking that they're stupid and letting doubt wear on them that they eventually just give up and find themselves over here anyway. There are too many people who reject Christianity because of their doubts. And there are way too many people with doubts who won't get their questions answered because they're too afraid of showing weakness or looking stupid. But check this out. I think we have this whole idea about doubt wrong. You see, doubt and having questions about your faith, that isn't a sign of weakness. It doesn't mean you're stupid. What it does mean is that you're being honest. It's understanding that you don't have all the answers. And that seems to be a problem for a lot of people because we've got this idea in our heads that we have to be perfect, that we have to have it all together, and that we have to have all the answers in order to be a Christian. We think doubt will crack our armor in a way that ruins our salvation until we repair it. But that has never been the case. Jesus said in Mark 2:17, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Jesus never asks us to be perfect. This is how it works. We come to God broken, and He takes it from there. You see, doubt can either do one of two things. It can stand between you and God, or it can press you towards Him. And that brings me to my second question that you all have been asking, which is, what does it mean if I have doubts? And first off, it means that you need to do something. Because no matter how doubt comes into your life, it will never leave on its own. Like I said before, if we keep our doubts to ourselves, they weigh on us and tear us down, and that's because doubt thrives in the darkness. Doubt loves when we keep it to ourselves, which is why we need to bring our doubts to the light and let others know the questions we're struggling with so that instead of holding us back, we can use our doubts as a catalyst for growing in our faith. If we look at our Bibles in Mark chapter 9, there's a story of a man who brings his son to Jesus because the boy has been possessed his entire life. And so for years, this man has been trying to heal his son. He even tried having Jesus' disciples heal the boy, but they couldn't do it. So in one last-ditch effort, the man brings his son to Jesus and says, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. And Jesus says, if you can. And he's probably thinking, excuse me? He says, everything is possible for one who believes. And the boy's father replies by saying, I do believe, but just help me overcome my unbelief. And it's right there that we can see this man's doubt. And it seems fair enough. I mean, this man, because of his son, has had struggles. He has felt pain. He's had to have had so many questions. I mean, he even brought his son to Jesus' disciples with no luck. So you can understand where this guy is coming from and why he's on his last leg here. But even through all of the man's doubts, with Jesus standing right before him, he says, "Jesus, help me with my unbelief." And Jesus did. This man's doubt was a catalyst to his belief. We can see the same concept again in the book of John, where one of Jesus' disciples, Thomas, was mourning the death of Jesus by himself when a few of the other disciples found him to let him know that Jesus was alive. But, Thomas, he wasn't buying it. And he said, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." But a week later, we see that Jesus found Thomas and says to him, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." And then the coolest thing happens right here when Thomas responds. He just simply says, "My Lord and my God." Like, it's really you. Like, you're alive. You've overcome death. My Lord and my God. And this is such a powerful story because Thomas had just about given up. He had just lost his best friend and teacher, and he probably didn't know what he was going to do. You see, doubt traps us when we feel like we're alone, when we think we have to do life alone, or when we think we have to figure things out alone. But that's the beauty of being a Christian. You're never alone. There's always someone that you can talk to and a God who loves to listen. Which brings me to my last question about doubt, which says, what should I do when I have doubts? And well, it's pretty straightforward. Just be honest. There's no sense in hiding it. We know that's no good. If you start to have doubts, if there's a question you're really struggling with, find a leader, find your pastor, find someone that you can trust, and just ask them. Talk with them. Don't be afraid to ask a question because you don't want to sound stupid. In the Bible, we're called to have a childlike faith, and I think that applies here. I'm not saying that we should just follow blindly or simplify our faith. That's not what this means. What I'm saying is, well, have you ever noticed how many questions little kids ask? Question after question after question. You can't get them to stop. And unfortunately, as we grow up, we tend to ask less and less of those questions. But that doesn't mean that the questions go away. But something happens here in this space. We lose something here as we get older. As we grow up, we're told over and over again that we just need to figure everything out on our own and for ourselves. But some of these questions are hard. And because they're hard to figure out on our own, we tend to just quit asking, giving up on faith. And here's why I think we need to have a little more childlikeness in us. And that's because kids know that they don't know. Let me explain here. You see, they don't have everything figured out, and it doesn't bother them. They'll ask questions along the way when they come, but they know that they don't know everything, and that's okay with them, because they know that someone does. But adults are different. We think that we have to know everything and have all the answers, and that if for some reason we don't have an answer, we just determine it must not be a good question worth asking, so we just veto the topic and shift the conversation to something that we do know. And that's the problem right there. That's what gets lost in here. It's honesty. What honesty can teach us in the situation is that while we may not have all of the answers, it's okay, because God does. Being honest is going to help us gain such a bigger and better picture of who God is and what He's doing in our lives. And so my challenge for us all this week is this: don't lose your childlike sense of wonder. Don't be afraid to ask difficult questions. And then lastly, bring your doubts to Jesus. Pray about them and see what He teaches you. What I want you to do this week is go out and live with a sense of wonder and whimsy and a desire to know more about Jesus like you have never had before. And I promise you, you won't regret it. Ready? Go.